Good evening, Lincoln County community members, and thank you for joining us this evening. This is our next installment of our Lincoln County Wildfire Readiness presentations for 2021 season. Tonight, we will be speaking to Chief Petrick and her team and doing a briefing on fire district and seasonal fire restrictions and precautions. And we are also joined by some of the members of the City of Yachats. Right now, we have Tom Fisher from the City of Yachats Emergency Management Committee, and of course, Chief Frankie Petrick from the Yachats Rural Fire Protection District. And they will be with us tonight to help answer any questions that we may have from our community members that are attending. Okay, so to get us started, I just want to let everyone know that this is actually a part of a series of presentations. In previous years, we had about a 2-hour presentation that we did in person with you, which we really prefer to do. But with the continuing COVID conditions, we were unable to have those presentations throughout the county. So instead, what we did is we took our 2-hour presentation and we broke it up into individual hours for 6 separate modules. Those individual modules were then presented twice and they were recorded and now are available for you to watch at any time on our emergency management website. You can actually also watch, you can also look at the individual slides from each of those presentations. So if you're attending tonight, you would be able to ask questions by dropping them in the chat box and we'll watch them as we go. You can, if you are watching from home on the Sheriff's Office live stream YouTube channel, you can email myself or Chief Petrick or the City of Yachats and we'll be happy to answer those questions for you. If you're watching this video at a later time, same thing, feel free to email us and we'll make sure we get your questions answered. And if you're actually looking at the PowerPoint slides at a different time, or maybe while you're watching the video recording, all of the graphics that we actually have in the presentation, when they're identifying specific content, when you click on those, it will actually take you to additional information for that slide that you're looking on. So they're really intended to be a self-learning guide. So first, we're going to watch our Lincoln County 2021 public service announcement. And then when we conclude that, we'll come back and we will continue on with our presentation. So this public service announcement was put together by our public information officers and features your Lincoln County Fire Defense Board, Chief Robert Murphy of Newport Fire, Chief Rob Dahlman from North Lincoln Fire, and your Lincoln County Sheriff, Curtis Landers. So give me just a moment here while I move over and bring that video over to you.
All need to prepare for it. And that's probably the biggest thing to the public is be aware. Be aware, be prepared, know what happens around you, know what happens in the community, listen to local radio, local media, sign up for Lincoln Alerts so that you have the most time, the best chance of getting early notification if we need to evacuate. I think something the general public, unless they've been through this, never really fully appreciates is how fast it spreads and how it can go from nothing to a firefighter or a sheriff's deputy knocking on your door saying, "Get out now." Sometimes, while we have a great system and we have the ready, set, go, sometimes it goes straight to go. I mean, that's just the reality because of how fast these fires spread. And so the time to start thinking about what do I do in a wildfire isn't when somebody's knocking on your door. That's probably the biggest lesson, I think. The time to start thinking about it, to start planning with your family, to know what you're going to do is really now. And that's why we're doing these messages, because we want people to think about this now, because in August, in September, you should already know what you're going to do.
Yeah, Lincoln Alert should be very much a priority in what they're preparing for their plans. It's a direct communication. We heard a lot of things. Communication wasn't good or wasn't acceptable during this last event, and we know that Lincoln Alerts is one of the things that continued to work and was providing information, timely information, to to all the residents in the area. And one of the things that residents can do is make sure that their Lincoln Alerts is up to date, that they have their phone numbers in properly, that their cell phones are in there. If you want to know about a neighbor or family member around, you can put their address in, and there's lots of tools and things you can do to be alerted in the event of not just a wildfire, but any event, any emergency event that goes on. It's an excellent tool, and that's one of the first priorities citizens should do is have that all up to date.
So your personal preparedness is have a plan of what to do if you have to evacuate. And this can be applied not just to fire season, but also if we have other natural disasters that come on. Pay attention to what's going on, know when those alerts come out, be part of and subscribe to the Lincoln Alert system, and make sure that you have, if you were to walk into your house and say, I've got 5 minutes to grab my most essential items, what would I take? What would be important? If you're at a level 1 or a level 2 evacuation for a wildland fire, have those things already gathered up and in your car. Have your birth certificates, your important documents, your computers, anything that you say, I can't live without this. Have that stuff at the door ready to go or in your car ready to go.
I'm just really proud to be part of this community and part of the response that goes into it between the county, between the cities, the different fire districts. It goes all hand in hand, and it's a very collaborative approach to these disasters. And it's also because of, we're prepared well. Jenny Demaris, our county emergency manager, prepares us every year, prepares the community as we're doing here with information, but it's working together. That's the only way that we'll succeed, and we do very well at it.
Visit Lincoln County's website to view the 2021 Wildfire Readiness Presentation Schedule. These are live events that you can attend via Zoom and ask questions, or you can watch them live streamed on YouTube. There are 6 subject matter areas and 1 event per each fire district. So if you can't make it in person, rest assured we will archive these online for you to review. When you get to the website, just use the search tool or look for the text that says Wildfire Readiness Presentations. Thank you.
Okay, a great job by our public information officers. Okay, so what are we going to talk about tonight? A little bit of an administrative brief, talk about who our sponsors are, our seasonal outlook for the summer for weather in both drought. We're going to talk with Chief Petrick, your fire chief from Yachats Rural Fire Protection District, and she's going to talk about what are burning restrictions, understanding wildfire weather warnings, what to do if, how to reach us or them, and when it's appropriate to call 911. And I'm going to talk a little bit about wildfire be ready tips. Then Oregon Department of Forestry, who would normally be with us tonight, will talk. I'll take their place and I'll talk a little bit about regulated use restrictions for both the public and our industrial partners. And then lots of information about additional resources to help you in your planning efforts, and then plenty of opportunity to answer any questions that you may have. So that administrative brief. First, I want to talk about, well, who are our wildfire advocates? As we know, most emergencies start with a call to our 911 dispatch center. They then activate our fire, EMS, and law enforcement first responders. Sometimes individuals are then taken to our local area hospitals, Samaritan Pacific Communities and Samaritan North Lincoln hospitals. Our utilities and public works departments then help us put everything back together it was before the event occurred. Our public health partners help us with communicable disease, behavioral health, and environmental health responses. Your elected officials are very important. They ensure that resources from state and federal agencies are available to these first responders when they need it. Your city, county, and tribal emergency operations centers then work collaboratively with all of these agencies and ensure that public information is disseminated appropriately and at the right time. So the sponsors for these presentations tonight are made up of your Lincoln County Fire Defense Board, which is each of your fire districts here in Lincoln County, and Oregon Department of Forestry. Other partners are the Lincoln County Public Health, the American Red Cross, Oregon State University Extension Service, Oregon Coast Community College, their Small Business Administration, and the Oregon Department of Finance's Consumer and Business Services. And of course, your Lincoln County Sheriff's Office. So what is our objective? Why are we presenting this information? Well, if you've listened to one of our Cascadia presentations in the past, you'll see that this objective is very similar. Our goal is to strengthen your knowledge of our local wildfire risk and your role in preparedness, response, and recovery, and also to let you know what your local government's responsibilities are. So seasonal outlook for weather and drought. So this is actually pretty cool. I actually didn't know that this resource was available to us until I started putting these presentations together. Your Oregon Department of Forestry has a weather seasonal climate forecast that they do every 3 months. So as I mentioned earlier, if you click on these graphics here, it will actually lead you to the page where you'll find their seasonal climate forecast. And again, they update those about every 3 months. The National Weather Service, our friends out of Portland, help us each summer and winter by preparing a weather outlook for that season. National Weather Service put this together for us in May of this year, as also we use this at our public safety tabletop exercise for preseason wildfire. So again, you can click on that and the presentation by the National Weather Service actually leads you through what was last summer's weather conditions, our snow accumulation, rainfall, what to expect, and what they're forecasting for the whole season. So drought conditions. This is actually a live data map from the U.S. Drought Monitor. You can click on it, save it in your bookmark, and I'll let you know that it does change fairly frequently. I had captured this information earlier in May when I started the presentations, and then when we started these specific presentations for the fire districts, I went back to recheck on June 10th, and our level of drought had already increased just from those few weeks. So looking at what we are listed at now for that moderate to almost severe drought conditions, and considering our extreme heat that we have taking place across our state of Oregon, you could see that we will have very dry conditions throughout the remainder of the season. Okay, so next we're going to talk a little bit about the local fire district with Chief Frankie Petrick from the Yachats Rural Fire Protection District. And give me just a minute here while I get Chief Petrick unmuted. And Chief Petrick, if you could maybe look on your computer where your name is, there should be a mute box. And it should let me unmute you, but it's my issue. So I'm trying to get this to undo. Okay, everybody just bear with us for just a second here. Let's see, hold on just a minute. Okay, Chief, if you can just look under your name there on the bottom of the menu bar, there should be a mute button that you should be able to just click. Oh, good, you've got your camera back. So one more button for the unmute and we're there. There you go. Right, you did. Thank you. Apologies for that, everybody. Yay. Okay, Chief Petrick, why don't you talk to us a little bit about your fire district, and when you're ready, you let me know to go to the next slide.
All righty. Our fire district runs from the the approximate line of Copeland lumber to the north, and just south of Yachats to the little Gibbs's Lighthouse, and up the Yachats River Road until it starts up the mountain. The district was originally formed in 1949, and we've had some annexations since that time. And we have about a little over 14 square miles. We are, of course, on the beach. We have a little different weather than we do as you come inland. As was evident today, it was foggy in town and nice and warm up here, actually ending up being quite warm later this afternoon. But we are into summer earlier every year, it seems like. And then I think back to history tells us that in 1934, a fire started at Blodgett Quarry, which is behind Job Corps, and ran all the way to Yachats River and all the way to the beach. And so I know that this isn't the first drought we've had. However, today we have more people living in our area, and which means that there are more opportunities for fire to do damage to residents, as is evident the damage up at Lincoln City last year. So what I can tell you is that in the wintertime, we have yard debris burning, and that allows people to get rid of their dead and down limbs from the storms. And keeping it clean around your home is important because dry debris will burn fast. However, there comes a time each year when it has the rain has stopped, and it's evident that we no longer are going to allow open burning, if you will. That being said, we do have special provision for people who want to have a summertime campfire at their home in their backyard. Those are primarily designed for a couple of hamburgers and a few marshmallows. And those are no fee for the permit, but it gives us an opportunity to know where people could be doing some burning of an evening. And we also, by keeping a record of all of those people, if the weather changes drastically and it's necessary to close those summertime fire permits, we can do so quickly. And we already once this year had what's known as a red flag warning, which told us that everything was super dry, and things burned easy at that point. And we are very grateful that the Oregon Department of Forestry manages that, getting that information out to us quickly. We then, when we receive a red flag warning, we then either by email, phone, or in person, get a hold of people who might be impacted. And of course, the having those, if the usual thing is middle of August to the first part of September. This year, it is dry, the river's very low, and I'm expecting that everybody is going to be extra special cautious this year. But be mindful of the debris around your home, that if you're going to pile it for fall burning, not too close to your house, take advantage of being able to recycle that material, and be mindful of what might happen if you need to evacuate quickly. The Lincoln Alerts is a great resource, and but keep your eye open for what's happening. Next slide. This is a burn ban is put in for a special part of the state, and where permits are canceled and new ones are not issued. And sometimes even the recreational fires will be impacted. The watching for smoke where there shouldn't be any is certainly a key thing for prevention. Recognizing, as Jenny pointed out, that there is a non-emergency line where people could call to say that there might be some activity that needs to be checked on, and but it's close to you, certainly call 911, and we can get somebody out to make sure that in fact everything is under control. So every part of the county of the 7 fire districts may have burning restrictions that are different from one another. You always want to check with your local fire district, and the information that comes out, for example, from the county is general. They encourage you to get a hold of your fire district that you're in, and making sure that you're calling the fire district that is responsible for you. So for example, in the Yachats area, going all the way up to near Copeland Lumber, some people up there may not be aware that they're actually not in the Central Coast Fire District, that they're in Yachats. And having some good idea of where you might be headed if you were asked to evacuate. That's always a key thing. Which way are people going to be going? And as Chief Dawn said, know what you're going to grab, things that would be difficult to replace, but might be essential following some kind of a fire disaster. What's fire weather? Well, fire weather comes to us generally in summer and fall. However, of late, we've been seeing it in the spring. And what it means is that there is not enough moisture in the plant life to protect itself. You can appreciate all of the times you've tried to burn some yard debris after a heavy rain, and nothing wants to heat up enough to burn. When the humidity changes and the moisture is not in the trees and the plants anymore, they don't have much of an ability to protect themselves. And so this time being mindful of what activities you're doing outside. As the weather gets hot, people who are busy mowing need to be mindful. If you have vegetation that's a bit high and you're mowing to get caught up, stick around for a while and make sure that there were no sparks from your mower blade hitting a rock. That seems like that would only be hard on your blade, but it also can cause a spark that could smolder in your grass and cause a fire in your absence. So the Weather Service has come up with some terminology just to help us understand that a red flag warning is very important, that within the next few hours, something critical is happening, and that you should be on your toes about what that means specifically to you, where you live, and be mindful of the relative humidity, and if there's winds, and if the 0 hour fuel moisture is less than 8%, things can get hot quick. Fire watch is an alert to let you know that something might be coming. Don't plan on having a big family barbecue where you want to have 2 or 3 fires during that time. Understanding all of those is mostly for in great detail for where activities don't stop because of the weather. Those of you who have lived on the Oregon coast are well aware of hoot owling, where those who work in the timber industry go to work. Some folks are going to bed and they're all done before noontime, so that that hot afternoon air is they're out of that area. Fire watch is required during those times, and on the industrial side, the ODF watches that very close for the permitted logging in the summer time to make sure that the appropriate precautions are taken. The next slide is a little hard to see, but what it's telling you is that wildfire runs fast. And as you probably are aware, that once you get a raging inferno going, the fire changes the weather and can make it much harder to get wildland fires under control. Clicking on the slide and being able to actually see what happens in the model that is given. The big thing here is you're not going to be able to outrun a fire. It's hot, and as Chief Murphy said, you might just get the knock on the door to go now without any notice. And always be mindful that whatever you have isn't worth losing your life to the fire. Get out when you can. What to do? Well, this is obviously, if you cause a fire and you are out of an area where you could easily get cell service, you want to try to extinguish the water or extinguish the fire with water or shovel, and have anyone that's with you get a call in to 911 before that fire can get out of hand. And we do have areas, of course, where cell service is pretty poor in the county. Obviously, get out of the immediate area and notify neighbors to do the same if it's safe to do. If you see smoke in a distance, it's probably already been called in. Some fires up in Canada a couple of years ago were bringing us a lot of smoke, and it seemed like it was a long way. But remembering that when Mount St. Helen blew, the ash went all the way around the world. It's the winds will carry smoke, and got a fire that's coming out of Canada and maybe one out of California. It seems like it's just down the block. But you always want to check and make sure that you aren't in danger from any of the smoke. Sometimes it comes up over the mountain here and down the Yachats River Valley, that you drive up expecting to see the hillside on fire somewhere, and it's from quite a distance off. The picture here of the Depot Bay of in August of 2016 just gives you an idea of how hot one of the wildland fire can get, and how much looking at those clouds, you can see that they're generating their own weather temperature or weather there, and that's can travel fairly quickly. Just be mindful. If you have questions about fire in the Yachats Rural Fire Protection District for summertime permits, or even yard debris burning for in the fall, please don't hesitate to call. We'd like to have you stop by. We're getting a little closer to being a little more open. And certainly if the crew's on a call, and leave a message and we will get back to you as quickly as we can. And all of a safe summer and early fall. Be mindful of your use of fire, and think about preparedness for wildfire. Back to Jenny.
Great job, Chief. Thank you so much. And I really appreciate Chief Petrick's historical perspective. She is one of our, well, let's just say she's been here since the beginning, and she really is able to give us the full spectrum of understanding our county, our weather, our conditions. We have lots of chiefs that have moved into the area and moved out of the area, but Chief Petrick is one of our founding fire chiefs, and so I really appreciate her. So, okay, I'm going to take it from here, and I'm just going to give you a little bit of understanding about where are our fire districts. So we are, as you know, a very long rectangular county, and we actually almost have two separate weather systems. So if you received a Lincoln Alerts message from us today, yep, you're right, we did, because the National Weather Service said we are going to be under an extreme heat advisory. I've already received emails from some of the folks right on the marine area, and they're like, what are you talking about? It's 72 degrees. Yep, you're right. At the water's edge, it's probably 60, 50, whatever it is. But all you have to do is go in just a few miles, and then our weather really changes in Central and East County. So starting at the top, we have North Lincoln Fire Protection District number 1, North Lincoln Fire, with Chief Rob Dahlman. And then Depot Bay Fire is in that green area. I believe Chief Daniel said they're about a mile wide, but very, very long. And then Newport actually has 2. Newport has the City of Newport Fire Department and then Newport Rural Fire Protection Area, but they're under one chief, Chief Rob Murphy. And again, very long. And then they go out Highway 20 just a ways where they meet up with Toledo. So going down a little bit further south, we have Seal Rock Rural Fire Protection District with Chief Sakaris. And then we have Central Oregon Coast Fire and Rescue, which is really the Waldport area. And they travel all the way out onto Highway 34. And then they meet up over there close to the county line. And then, of course, Chief Petrick has already talked about the Yachats district, which you can see down at the bottom in that darker blue color. And then back up to the center of the county, we have the City of Toledo Fire Department in the green. And then they co-locate with the East Lincoln County Fire District that travels out for a portion of Highway 20, just about to the Eddyville area on the old Eddyville Highway. Just north of them, we have the Siletz Valley Rural Fire Protection District. Right now, they have an interim chief in place there, but you can see they're along Highway 229, and they really cover quite a bit of timber, forested land, and some residential area, and of course, their city of Siletz. So how would you reach those folks? So you could click on this link here. It actually brings up our non-emergency phone numbers for all of our fire districts, Oregon Department of Forestry, Oregon State Police, all of our law enforcement agencies in the cities and the county sheriff's office, Pacific West Ambulance, and even South Lincoln Ambulance. You'll notice that in one column, we have the non-emergency number to dispatch. So that's the number if you want to get a hold of the fire department, but you don't feel like it's appropriate to call 911. And then of course, their business number that you would call for, like Frankie suggested, burn permits or any other questions that you may have. And so the 3 dispatch centers and I put this together. It is, sorry, a little hard to read on the video, but go to the slides. This is really a when to call 911. We have many community members that ask us and your fire EMS agencies, well, I wasn't really sure if I should call 911. I didn't want to bother them. I didn't think that my emergency was a real emergency. So this is a great guide to sort of read through this and really determine when is it appropriate to call 911. And then of course you reference the other sheet with the appropriate non-emergency number. So I'm going to talk just a little bit about wildfire be ready tips, but I want to let you know that really I would encourage you to look at some of the other videos and presentations that we've put together, specifically the evacuations and emergency notifications. That's where we really talk about what to do if a deputy or fire official knocks on your door and tells you it's time to go, how to sign up for Lincoln Alerts or update your profile. And then we also had wildfire protection for wildfire. That's where Oregon Department of Forestry, Oregon State University really talked about those components that Chief Petrick did about defensible space, how to prepare your physical property, how to get your house and structures as ready as you can for to be resilient against wildfire. So again, make sure that everyone in your household who has their own mobile device has their own Lincoln Alerts profile. It's very important that each person is able to be notified individually. One of you may be shopping in the valley, one is taking a walk on the beach, one just got off the school bus and is home alone. And it's really important that everybody gets that important information at the same time. Know your evacuation levels. We have an adopted evacuation levels across the entire state of Oregon. They've adopted the Ready, Set, Go program. So level 1 is be ready to go. That's when you're gathering things, getting ready. Level 2 is be set. But what I would tell you at a level 1 and level 2, if you're planning on moving pets, livestock, or if you have any family members that have access and functional needs or may have like mobility issues, you're going to want to get them ready to go and then evacuate early during that level 1 and level 2. And especially if you have motorhomes, RVs, boats, if you're really thinking you're taking those things with you, do not wait until level 3, because that's when we're going to have congestion on the highways and evacuation routes. We want to limit the amount of vehicles and traffic that are on the road so people can move quickly. And lastly, that level 3 means go now. That doesn't mean start packing your car. That means keys are in your hand, family's in the car, and you're driving out the driveway. Now, if you need help during a level 1 or 2, you don't have transportation, or perhaps you need a medical evacuation for a family member, you're going to want to call the Lincoln County Call Center, which is in the evacuation brochure. The evacuation presentation. At a level 3, that's not the time to ask for help for pets or livestock. At a level 3, if you need help evacuating, you don't have a way to evacuate yourself or your family members, that's when you're going to call 911 for that assistance. But the call center for level 1 and 2, and then 911 for yourself and your family members if you don't have a way to get out. So wildfire be ready tips, have that plan in place. This is a great tool, your personal wildland fire action guide. When you click on this, it will take you to a multi-page document. It actually has some checklists and some information that you can sort of fill out ahead of time. Again, the early evacuation is the key for those with pets, animals, access and functional needs households. Comply with local warnings about evacuations. Don't wait till the last minute. And please do not underestimate how fast fire progresses. So next, Oregon Department of Forestry would be providing with you a little bit of an overview, but I'm going to step in for them tonight. So on their page, they have 2 sections here, check for public fire restrictions and check for industrial fire restrictions. So the public is us, John Q. Public, regular residential households and businesses, and industrial is really referring to, as Chief Petrick mentioned, timber fallers, industry partners working in the woods, utility workers, folks that are actually out in the forested areas doing their work. So with those pages, if you were to click on there, it would take you to here. Right now, you'll see it says West Oregon District Low Fire Danger. This was taken a snapshot a couple of months ago. So that color will change based on those current conditions at that time. And this page here is from Oregon Department of Forestry. What this is providing to you is sort of the restrictions for the public during regulated use. So what that means is when you see Oregon Department of Forestry move into one of these color codes, low, moderate, high, or extreme, they have established restrictions or limits as to the activities that you can do during those times of regulated use. So the best one, for example, to use is mowing of dried or cured grass is restricted. So during a low area, it is allowed all day. But as we move into moderate, higher, extreme, then you'll notice most of the things in the red area extreme, those activities are not allowed at all. So again, just as Chief Petrick was mentioning, if you were planning out to go out and cut firewood for yourself on your own property, or perhaps you had a permit for that, you wouldn't be able to operate your chainsaw during some of these restricted areas. Now, when Charlie's here from Oregon Department of Forestry, he has a great example about your liability. So this is a true scenario that happened. It's referred to as the Stouts Creek Fire. A few years back, there were two separate property owners that were doing, just as Chief Petrick gave a good example of mowing their grass in dried conditions. They both started a small fire with their lawnmowers in the grass independently of each other. Those fires grew, got away from them, and got so big that they merged into each other to become the Stouts Creek Fire. So after everything was done, it took many, many days, weeks, I think even months to contain that fire and eventually put it out. Well, the cost of the response and the damages was well over $30 million. Because those two property owners were doing an activity within the public regulated use restrictions, right? They were doing it when they weren't supposed to. They were found at fault and were liable for all of the damages and for the response costs. So those two homeowners were responsible for over $30 million in payment to the state of Oregon. So there's a huge liability here. And I also encourage you to watch the video that we did on financial readiness. Nancy Yule from the Oregon Department of Financial Regulation has an excellent presentation for you as a property owner or even a renter to really understand insurance, your policy, your risk levels, what happens if you don't have enough, how you can work with those insurance companies when you're in the recovery and rebuilding stage. So definitely worth your time. And Chief Petrick, is there anything else you would like to add about the public regulated use restrictions?
No, I think we've got it covered.
Okay, great, thanks. Okay, and then this is just a copy, image of the industrial fire restrictions. Those folks that are in the industrial fire restrictions, they're very familiar with this, but we just wanted to point it out in case you happen to click on that page. There's one for us as the public and then one for the industrial partners. So now I'm just going to talk a little bit about what additional resources available to you. And first, we always want to encourage our community members to think about building your survival skills or your own toolbox and think about volunteering. Everyone is always encouraged to get first aid and CPR. This is really beneficial for all hazard events, accidents or emergencies in your own home or at the workplace, and definitely during large scale disaster responses. We'll need community members to really be able to take care of themselves and help take care of their neighbors. When you're thinking about volunteering, consider the American Red Cross. They have two primary focuses they provide to us here in Lincoln County. The first one is going to be when an individual property owner family has a structure fire, just their house is on fire and it may be damaged or destroyed, those local order to support that family or that property owner, it could be even a renter, to provide alternate housing on a short-term basis until they can make contact with their insurance company. And then also we'll provide them some, sometimes they get meal money or some hygiene things or even extra clothes, things that they need to get them by for their first few days. The other way the American Red Cross helps Lincoln County community members is they provide our base sheltering services during large-scale disasters. So for the Echo Mountain fire that we had last year, they were the primary responder to provide that sheltering service to those evacuees. The Medical Reserve Corps is a new volunteer group for Lincoln County. We had been getting it up and going over the last few years, and last year we really had all the parts and pieces in place. And they were up and ready to go. And when COVID happened and we were ready to start those vaccination clinics the beginning of this year, those Medical Reserve Corps volunteers were able to participate and help augment public health. And also during that time, we recruited additional Medical Reserve Corps members. And I think we're up to, I think during the heightened time of COVID clinics, I think we had about 50 medical volunteers. And then our core group will probably be somewhere between 35 to 40 members. So if you have interest in that, if you go to our county emergency management page, all of these volunteer agencies are listed there. You can click on them and then find out more information. Of course, your CERT chapters of Lincoln County, we have 4 chapters. That's the Community Emergency Response Teams, North Lincoln, Depot Bay Fire, Newport Fire, and Central Coast Fire is the sponsoring agency for all of South County. So they are referred to as South County CERT. They've all been merged into one chapter. They're really about neighbors helping neighbors. That was the onset of how their CERT groups were initiated at the federal level. You do have to have training in advance for a CERT member, but if you go to that page and find the group that's closest to you and contact them, they're going to let you know when their next basic course is. I think it's 20 hours of training, and then you can volunteer to be a CERT community response team member. I actually skipped over our amateur radio or ham radio operators. That's our Lincoln County Auxiliary Communication Service. You do have to have your FCC license for amateur radio. You can study at home. You can take an online class. You can take a class with us for amateur radio. And then once you receive that certification, then you can volunteer to be an amateur radio operator. And then map your neighborhood. It's not necessarily a volunteer group, but it really is a way to help strengthen that neighborhood planning for disasters. It's also a great way to meet your neighbors, to find out what their skills, what their resources are, and then also identifying which neighbors may be vulnerable, which neighbors may need help evacuating. And a lot of times we do talk about Cascadia. You're right. We've been really talking about Cascadia, but map your neighborhood really helps in other situations as well. So we have a video online, we have brochures and information that we can give you, all kinds of resources we can help you with that neighborhood planning. So a few other additional resources, Lincoln Alerts. These are all links to go to this information, our seasonal wildfire readiness information. And we have a new page, sort of, active wildfires for Lincoln County. We had this page last year, but we all agree as part of our after action review, it was buried and hard to find. So this active wildfires for Lincoln County, anytime that we have an active wildfire in Lincoln County, we're going to take that page and we will start filling out all the information that those evacuees or other community members are looking for. You could click on it today and it will show you all of the information points that we're going to be collecting during that active wildfire. Once the fire has been considered active, the public information officers for the county will then put that at the top of the county website, so it'll be easy to find. Current conditions, this is a really great thing to bookmark on your mobile phone, your desktop, or your iPad. All of the live information that is accessible for us, the public, is listed there. So USGS for earthquakes, tsunamis, regular weather events for the National Weather Service, flooding events, air quality, air monitoring, smoke fog, wildfires here in Oregon or across the United States. All of those things are listed. When you open that page, you'll notice that they're not in alphabetical order at the top. They are in order by those that we see people access the most. But if you go down to the bottom, they're listed again, all in alphabetical order. We've already talked about when to call 911 and your public safety agency contact information. And then lastly, these are the 6 modules of presentations that we have already provided, and they're available online. So financial and business preparedness, animal preparedness. Laura Ireland, our animal services director, provided that presentation on pre-evacuation planning, during response, and then recovery. And then property protection by understanding wildfire risk. That was Oregon Department of Forestry and Oregon State University Extension Office, and myself really talking about how do you protect your property pre-event. Emergency notifications and evacuations, that's your emergency management department and your Lincoln County Sheriff's Office Patrol Division. Sheltering with the American Red Cross and the medically fragile persons. We operated a medically fragile person shelter co-located with the Red Cross shelter during our Echo Mountain fire. And then air quality considerations. We have many community members that ask us, how can I find out information when we have smoky conditions? What can I do? Well, that presentation will give you all those helpful tips and how to access that air monitoring information. And then we followed up with a presentation on access and functional needs persons. So really, those community members really have to take extra special steps to ready themselves and ready their households so that they're actually ready to be ready to evacuate when it's time. And then, of course, state of Oregon, state of California, we did list them. They are quite a ways ahead of us for Oregon, but Oregon's really catching up quick. So they have a lot of great ready for wildfire season information for you. Our federal and national partners at ready.gov, the National Fire Protection Agency with their FireWise Community Wildfire Community Preparedness Day, the Ready, Set, Go program, and of course, the American Red Cross. So now I will pause here for just a minute to see if we have any questions. And Chief Petrick, do you have any closing comments or anything that you would like to say?
No, happy to answer any questions that may arise.
Well, I've taken a look here and it doesn't look like we actually have any questions. We'll just give it another 30 minutes. So I'll just say thank you to you, Chief Petrick, and your team for being able to participate in our presentation tonight. This will be, it is being recorded now, and probably first thing in the morning, I will save the link for the recording and I will put it on our website so that you'll be able to watch this. The presentation slides are already there, so you can click on those at any time. And still no questions, Chief Petrick. So I think we will go ahead and conclude our presentation for tonight. And a final thank you to you. And that's it.
And thank you, Jenny.
Absolutely. Okay, we'll see you next time, Chief. Bye.
Bye.